everyone and welcome to the Den. And for this week's double dose, we're gonna do cheap-ish meals. I can't say that anything these days is really cheap. Even ground beef, which used to be cheaper, is now not so cheap. I mean, sometimes depending on the cut you get for beef is incredibly expensive. But ground beef, if you can get it on sale or you can buy it in bulk, can be less than other cuts of meat by a reasonable amount. So we're gonna feature 2 ground beef recipes this week. We're gonna do Korean beef and rice bowls. That's gonna be our first one. And then the second one, I'm gonna try an old-fashioned goulash recipe. Both of these I have not made. I may have made goulash in the past before, but never Korean beef. So the Korean beef is very few ingredients, and I think a lot of them you may even have on hand for both recipes. So I'm excited to try these. I hope you like this double dose this week. So stick around and see how we make Korean beef and old-fashioned goulash. Let's get cooking. Okay, so we are going to start off with just a few simple ingredients. I'm going to chop a whole onion because I'm going to double my recipe. I'm going to do a whole clove of garlic, and then I'm going to do a teaspoon of fresh ginger here. And then I just have some green onions for garnish, which you totally don't have to have if you don't have them on hand or don't want to purchase them. But I'm going to chop those up as well. So let's get started with the chopping. So it says to put the onion in the sauce, but I'm going to cook the onion with the hamburger meat just so it's not so crunchy. So I'm gonna get this onion chopped up and get it in the pan and start cooking it with the beef. We're going to cook this in a little bit of sesame oil, about 2 tablespoons of sesame oil. If you don't have sesame oil, you could just substitute that for whatever oil you have. But if you're going to stick with the Asian kind of theme here, the sesame oil is probably best. And I like sesame oil. It's got like this nutty smell, and if you've ever cooked with it, you know, it's really good for different types of Asian cuisine. So I'm going to get my hamburger in here as well. And I'm just going to cook this over medium heat. And while this is cooking and browning, I'll keep an eye on it and keep stirring it. And I'm going to go ahead and get my sauce going while this is browning. Okay, so I'm going to serve my beef over white rice. So if you're going to do that as well, rice will take about 25 to 30 minutes to cook between having the water come to a boil and then adding your rice. So go ahead and do that before you start your beef. I just have my water over here coming to a boil because, like I said, that'll take probably longer than the beef. So let's get our sauce mixture going here. So I'm just gonna chop up my ginger and my garlic. Alright, so what I have added in here is my garlic, my ginger, and 4 tablespoons of brown sugar. Now, I doubled the brown sugar because I'm doubling my recipe. So I'm also going to need a ½ cup of soy sauce. This is a cup measuring thing, and I'm doing just a smidge more than a ½ cup because the beef that I'm using was 2 1/4 pounds, so. And we're also going to need red pepper flakes. So it calls for a teaspoon for a double batch, but I'm just going to measure with my heart. Don't want it too spicy. Okay, and that's about it. You can unclump this, but once we get it in the meat, this sugar is going to melt, so I'm just going to leave it just like that. And let's finish up our meat. So the meat is almost done. So once this is fully cooked through, we're going to add our sauce and let it simmer with the sauce in there. So when this is fully browned, I'll come back. So to get rid of some of this fat, I'm just going to use the paper towel method just to soak up some of it. the way. All right, so let's go ahead and add our sauce. I'm gonna turn my temperature to, I'm gonna leave it at medium. I did have it at high at the end there. Make sure we get all that out. I'm just gonna stir this sauce into the meat. And we're gonna let this simmer just a few minutes. My rice has about 5 or 6 more minutes, so I'm gonna let it simmer at least that long. And then we'll be ready to eat, simple as that. Okay, everything is all ready, and I'm just gonna make my bowl here. Gonna add some white rice, my meat mixture, I'm going to do a fried egg, even though that's completely optional. You do not have to add that. Some green onions, and then I'm just gonna sprinkle a bit of sesame seeds on there as well, and we're good to go. Okay, so I told you I've never had this before. I have tasted the meat, and it's actually really, really good, but I'm gonna taste it all together, and we're gonna see how this is all together. Now, I'm going to just bust open my egg here so we can let some of that ooze down into the meat. Again, you don't have to make the fried egg. It's not that big of a deal, but I'm gonna get a little piece of that with it. If you wanted to leave this keto, you could just have the meat with like some avocado, I think that would be good. If I can get this egg apart. Okay, so here's our taste test. It's really good. I like it a lot. I think it's good. I think for a cheap meal, it's definitely, I will definitely make this again. So here is our Korean beef and rice, and stick around for old-fashioned goulash. Okay everyone, so it's time for part 2 of our double dose, and we're gonna do our goulash. So goulash is one of those recipes that I feel like it kind of stems from like what you might have on hand, throw it in a pot and make do. But typically your goulash recipe will have tomato sauce, diced tomatoes, meat, and noodles, and then just a few spices. So like an onion, some garlic, things like that. So it's very basic and a very simple recipe. But I'm going to add in, I have some spaghetti sauce left over with some sausage in it. I'm also going to add in some taco meat that I had frozen that I need to use up. I'm just going to throw that stuff in there with it, and that might sound weird, but I might add a little bit more taco seasoning with it. But again, I think the beauty of this recipe, sorry about my defroster in the back, the beauty of this recipe is that you can throw some of the leftovers into the pot with the noodles as long as the flavor profile will be good, and you can make a meal out of it, and you're getting rid of stuff, you're not throwing it away. So let's get into this. I'm gonna chop some onion and some garlic up. I already have my meat defrosting. I am going to add a pound of ground beef because it does call for 2 pounds of ground beef. So between the ground beef from my taco meat and the just regular ground beef, that's gonna be enough meat. So let's get chopping so that we can get cooking. All right, so I'm just gonna use a clove of garlic. I'm gonna use most of this garlic. I might just use half. I'll decide here in a minute. I'll see how big the cloves are. And I'm gonna use a red onion because that's what I have on hand. So I'm gonna get these chopped up and I'm gonna get these started in the pan. So as soon as these are all done, I'll be back. Okay, so I'm gonna get this on high, just a little bit less than high. And I'm gonna put a little olive oil in the bottom, and we're gonna cook up our onion and our garlic. All right, so just go ahead and throw your onion. I'm just gonna put the garlic in there too. Normally I would wait to put my garlic in, but it'll be fine. And we're just gonna sweat this down, and then we'll add our meat. All right, so now I'm gonna add in my ground beef. And we're gonna just let this cook through until it's all brown throughout, and I'll be back. All right, so in here I have added my taco meat, which I thought I was recording, sure wasn't, so that's good. I also added in my spaghetti sauce with the sausage in it, so that's what these chunks are. And I'm going to need a couple extra cans of tomatoes and maybe a tomato sauce, so I'm gonna grab those and I'll be right back. I'm going to add in 1 can of Rotel here. This is what I had in my pantry. This is a little bit spicy, so if you just wanted to use diced tomatoes, that's totally fine. I guess this is gonna have a bit of a Mexican style flair to our goulash. You could also add in like a can of drained corn. I think that would be fitting for this. Even a can of black beans if you wanted to make it like a Tex-Mex goulash. But basic goulash will just have the ground beef, 2 pounds of ground beef. I'll put the whole just plain goulash recipe in the description below. But this one is not, I just added the rotellan, but normally it would just have beef, sauce, tomato sauce, diced tomatoes, your onion, your garlic, and some seasonings. So I'm just gonna give this a stir. And once we get the noodles in here, I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add a little bit of water and some chicken bouillon or beef bouillon. Okay, so I have a cup of water here, but I'm only gonna add in half the cup. And I'm gonna stir that in and see, because I want this to be kind of thick. Yeah, that's gonna be plenty. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add just a few seasonings to this. So I'm gonna add in some granulated onion. I'm going to add in some taco seasoning just because I feel like it already has taco meat in it and it's not gonna hurt the flavor. And then I have some granulated garlic here that I'm gonna throw in. And I'm gonna give that a stir. I'm just gonna give it a little taste because I wanna see what it's tasting like. It tastes pretty good, so as soon as my noodles are done, I'm gonna throw those in there to combine together, and then this dinner will be ready. All right, so now I'm gonna add in my noodles, and I did a pound of macaroni, so let me grab that. Now the noodles really add bulk to this, and that's what also I think makes this a very cheap meal, is that you do have the noodles in there to add that bulk. So you can see that just by adding the noodles, we have doubled or more than doubled the volume. And it is noodly, but it looks good to me. So we're gonna give this a shot. And we're gonna top this with some cheese. And if you wanted to and you had sour cream on hand, I feel like that would be fitting for this version of goulash just because it has some taco seasoning in it. But if it was more traditional with just your tomato sauce and tomatoes in here, then just the cheese would probably be just good enough. And also I think that you could even do like Parmesan cheese and mozzarella cheese, and that would be a good combination. But we're gonna use cheddar. So let me get my bowl ready and then I'll do a taste test for you. All right, so here is our bowl of goulash, and I'm just going to put some cheese on it, just however much you want. And then a dollop of some sour cream, because I think that will be good. All the toppings are optional. The cheese is probably going to make it better, but it's optional. If you don't have cheese on hand, then don't worry about it. We're just gonna do some green onions just because I have these and I needed to use them. And that's gonna be it. So now we're gonna do a taste test. All right, so we're gonna taste this with all the toppings on it and see what we think. It's actually really good. It's almost like a chili mac in a way. I think it's good, and using all my leftovers in my fridge and some that were in my freezer that were needing to be used, which is a really good way to reduce what I had to spend on this meal, because most of the stuff I had everything for this meal already. But if you had to get stuff, it wouldn't cost you that much. Especially if you buy things in bulk. I feel like this is one of those meals where if you're looking for things in your pantry, you probably are gonna have a lot of these ingredients. So that being said, I hope you try this one out as well. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and this is our second recipe for our double dose for this week. And I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you subscribe, and I will see you all in the next video.